do you feel like your chronic fatigue was a point of awareness for you around,
Yes.
Because sometimes people will talk about their awakening or awareness or like
Exactly.
reality check
Yeah.
at the depth of, well, everything's kind of been stripped away and there's nothing left and you kind of
Yes.
have to reassess, rebuild. So how do you kind of manage your life now?
Right.
What's your game plan?
Right. So first thing is getting back to the not good enough, right? If we buy into society where you're never good enough and you never have enough, all you can do is try to get better or buy more, right? Which is what they want you to do. They want you to take more courses, but once again, that takes you away from who you are, and you keep going on this treadmill. So when people come to me saying I'm not good enough, I agree with them for the moment because that's how they feel. But then we need to unpack it and explore it a lot more, like where those values of not being good enough come from. Right. And then for people who go the next level of perfectionism, right, just sort of seeing for people that perfectionism can never be reached because who reaches perfection?
Right.
No one. By the nature of its definition, it's unreachable. You're always striving toward it, right? And then we're trained to have a critical mind. So even if you get close to perfection, you're going to knock yourself down, somehow finding some flaw in it, right?
Right.
So we really begin to just explore that very weird societal story that we're forced to carry out if we're not awake.
And, I've been talking a lot about the nervous system with my patients. Can we go into that a little bit?
Sure.
Because I think it kind of ties into when you start asking things like, where's this coming from? So I want to talk a little bit about the nervous system, but then I also want to talk about trauma and childhood trauma, right? And kind of go like, how does all of this kind of fit into the picture of healing? So it's not really, disease that we're focusing on, but we're focusing on point of healing. How do you tap into that healing pathway and move forward?
You have either your nervous system gets overstimulated and then you don't know what to do, right? And then you have trauma on top of it, which is, Gabor Mate talks a lot about disconnect, right? And Bessel van der Kolk talks a lot about that too. The body knows the score. So you're kind of caught in a weirdness of between your mind and body. They're not communicating. Your mind says one thing, your body says another, and then you're caught in the middle.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And finally, when you begin listening to your body instead of your mind, that's where you begin to find some truth. But your mind is always fighting it because your mind has this story it insists on sticking to. But your body keeps pulling out of it. My mind said, I should be able to work, but what big deal? So I have sores in my mouth, so I only have 2 hours of energy a day. Why can't I work? Just like what you said, right? But my body said, sorry, intermission time. You have to go to bed. And you may not get up for hours.
Right.
So it was a real, what can I say? Letting go, I guess, of myself. Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest struggles in that is that it's an internal battle.
Right.
And everything feels true, so your mind and what your mind is saying feels like truth and what your body is saying feels like truth. And you have this internal battle going on. And I think the point of, and I use the words interchangeably, awareness, consciousness, reality check, healing, because obviously everyone's belief system is different. But ultimately, it's that point of when do you recognize that you have the choice to get better? You have the choice to actually tell your mind, or your body. I mean, it's weird. Is it that your body tells your mind, or that you allow your mind to, or have a healthy conversation between the two? But at this point, I think, part of my journey has been recognizing when I'm in fight or flight mode, which when I was in varsity, I would be trembling as if there was a lion chasing me, but there wasn't. It was a pending test or a pending lecture with maybe a lecturer that I didn't particularly like very much, or not that happened very often. But it was kind of like, here's the idea, is like, I would be in this space of fight or flight mode, and then I'm exhausted afterwards because my body's going, well, we've been here for 2 weeks and nothing's happened. You know, the lion hasn't come, it hasn't killed you, you haven't killed the lion, but we're still like cortisol pumping through, adrenaline pumping through. And then when I hit the point of depression in probably my 3rd or 4th year, it was back to that where I almost think sometimes the depressive state is when you just had such mind overload that your body's going, enough, like you need to sleep, you need, downtime. And at least that was my experience, but I still fought through until the last year and a half where my body was absolutely like, if you get out of bed, I was out of bed for an hour. And it was enough. It was like I literally could not do it.
It's so interesting what you were saying about the depression.
Yeah.
Because so often I get teenagers and adults referred to me for depression who turns out have some sort of chronic illness that they're aware of or not aware of.
Yeah.
So it's actually that their immune system is being depressed. And the depression is just secondary, not primary.
Right.
And I see so many physicians, so many specialists making that mistake. They go for the symptomatology, but they don't think about what's behind it.
Of course.
So I think that's one really, really, really important thing.
We were talking about trauma and just like disconnect from self. What does that practically look like? Yeah.
The first thing is your body's on alarm. You're talking about fight or flight. It has an infection. It has a viral load. So automatically it's off balance, right? So it's either in fight mode, flight mode, freeze mode, right? So then it's going to be whatever trauma it has to process, can't do it. That's the bottom line. It just won't be able to do it. It doesn't have the focus. It's too distracted. It's fighting another battle. So it's not, I think you have to accept it. Once you accept where you're at, then if you're lucky and you have enough energy, you can just begin to maybe process trauma in your life. But often the trauma can be physical, right? It's the fact that your body's under attack. There's inflammation all over the place. Your viral load is high. You feel miserable.
Right.
That's, to me, the trauma. You don't have to go back in time to find other traumas from childhood because you're living one right then and there.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. And so how do we, concept of time and healing? Yeah. That's what can I ask you? What was that like for you? Because here you are saying, look, you're a perfectionist. At that point, you were an achiever, and now you have this chronic illness or this condition that ain't getting any better anytime soon. Yeah. So, how does that affect you? I think I feel like I've definitely, on one hand, I'm grateful for the clarity that it's brought, and I hold on to that because I understand just how positive emotions have an effect on our bodies. And so the space of gratitude is often a space that I'm trying to constantly get to. Does it happen all the time? No. But I also, like you said, just an awareness of I'm in a flare-up right now, and that's okay, and that just means that I'm not going to be as productive as I was last week, and just really the commitment to healing and recognizing when I have the energy to really, that internal battle between the mind and the body,